Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Evan. Today we're going to be looking at the work of Taylor Swift solely as a creative director. We're not going to focus on the superstar status. We're not going to focus as much on the music. We're just going to look at her album cover designs, her involvement, and what it means for the bigger picture of her entire career and entire discography. Also, we are going to unbox the 1989 vinyl and really dig into it. So, let's get started. Here we go.
Creative Direction Studio.
Alright guys, let's take a trip back to the year 2006. This is the year Twitter was launched, this is what cell phones look like, and this was the world's introduction to a young country artist named Taylor Swift.
I need more hair.
So, not my favorite design, feels a little bit busy. I feel like some of the colors and elements don't necessarily complement each other. The photo feels like it's lacking personality. She was like 17 years old and they airbrushed this thing to death, made her eyes blue. Looks exactly like my thumbnails. But one thing that is interesting here is we really do get a slight peek into Taylor Swift's initial interest here in art direction and creative direction. This is from Wikipedia. The album Taylor Swift was released October 24th, 2006 through Big Machine Records. Swift was involved in the album packaging and designing the doodle graphics herself. She included hidden messages and hints at the subjects of her songs in the lyrics printed on linear notes, inspired by the Beatles hiding secret messages in their records. Swift said the messages could be interpreted by tracking the capital letters in the order they appear in the lyrics printed on the linear notes. I think it's really cool, especially for a young artist to be this involved in their packaging, art direction, creative direction, etc., and really being mindful and purposeful about placing little Easter eggs in there for her fans. I think that's really cool, and I think that this is the first time that we really see this happening in a long line of her being so hands-on with her art. Also, this is the OG Taylor Swift logo down here. This was her brand foundation for a long time. I don't know the origin of this logo. If I had to guess, I would imagine it was probably something that Taylor initially drew out herself and then had a graphic designer kind of comp it and work it a little bit. But this particular logo carried her across the next two albums. All right. Fearless. Fearless came out in 2008. Man, overall, I think a much stronger design. I think a much better photo. More personality, really fun. Looks like they really took everything up a notch here. The cover art was done by Lean Ann Ramey with photos from Joseph Anthony Baker, Ash Newell, and Cheryl Nields. To the best of the research that I could find, it didn't look like Taylor had designed this cover. However, she did design the booklet inside, and this is pretty fun. Have a look at this stuff. So, again, kind of see these elements that we saw in her debut album. These doodles, these kind of hand-drawn things. You can really tell Taylor spent a lot of time considering the design because it seems like each page is very, very different thematically, and the colors and aesthetics seem to pair up with certain songs or certain emotional themes that she's trying to relay here. All right, next one, 2010 Speak Now record. I think this marked the beginning of her iconic red lipstick imagery. It looks like Josh and Bethany Newman, who have worked with Taylor on a lot of things, were kind of handling design elements here. Much more went into styling, much more went into kind of overall thought. And it's really interesting. So this album was originally going to be called Enchanted. And when you really look at this cover, I feel like they went into the photo shoot and the kind of overall direction with that title in mind. Just in terms of some of the design choices, it feels very, very fairy tale-ish, very majestic. So later on, Scott Borchetta decided he wanted to change that title because it felt a little bit too juvenile and there was more adult themes in this record. So they ultimately went with Speak Now. Music-wise, at this point, we're still pop country, but I think packaging-wise, I think all of these visuals and all of these illustrations reinforce what the music is, and I think that's exactly what it ought to do. All right, 2012, here we are with Red. Red was kind of a departure from a lot of these other elements, and Taylor Swift was very much involved in this one too. One thing that I love about this cover, and that I think it really reinforces the idea with the music sonically, is that it's a very mysterious photo here. Like, you don't really see her eyes, top of her face is in shadow, of course. The light hits the red lipstick. We're still leaning very much into that as like a brand element. Notice the logo's gone too. But yeah, this entire mysterious photo thing, I think that really says a lot about where musically she was going with this album. So this album was creative directed by Taylor Swift herself, of course. Bethany Newman and Josh Newman did art design once again. I think it is a little bit interesting. The cover here is, a little, I wouldn't say darker, but it's definitely had some mysterious undertones to it. But when you look at the inserts here, everything feels very reminiscent of kind of older Taylor Swift, a little bit lighter, a little bit airier, a little bit more fun. So I think overall this is a really good mixture of both of those worlds and trying to present a new side of Taylor here musically. So yeah, I like this one, guys. I liked it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I do like it. All right. The time has come, guys. The time has come. I have actually wanted this vinyl for a long time. This is probably my favorite Taylor Swift artwork. There it is. There it is in all its glory. So here. All right. So, yes, Polaroids everywhere. It feels a little bit washed out, and then you kind of have this neon font sign to really bring everything together. I think that's really cool. I love all of these like handwritten things on here.
I'm writing a bunch of 1989s for them to intersperse throughout the album art.
The beauty of this, at first glance, I think, is that it's almost as simple as it gets, right? It is handwritten text on there. Like I said, there's like, it looks like there might have been like a slight stammer on like this 8. I sort of love it. Right away, it doesn't even say Taylor Swift on it, but you know exactly who this is. It's simple, it's clean, it's super effective. Yeah, it's iconic. I love it. Taylor really wanted this one to feel like it was something that you would see come from 1989, not necessarily from, you know, a design perspective of that era, but more of something you would open a drawer and find Polaroid photos. She wanted this to feel retro. She wanted it to feel vintage. She wanted it to feel authentic to 1989. It could have been so easy to get a photographer and shoot 500 raw digital photos and go back in and apply certain textures to them and certain color treatments and everything to really affect them in a way to where it looks like film. And I think that would give them much more flexibility anyways, but they didn't do that. They really went heavy on Polaroid, and I think that's really cool. I think that it really lends itself to that authentic nature that Taylor's trying to get across here, in the packaging, in the art design, in the creative direction itself, as well as the music. This was her first foray out of country music. This also came at a time when there was a lot more artists making the switch from pop music to country. Taylor went the opposite direction of that, and I think, like I said, that's a bold move, and for a lot of artists that does not pay off. And I think the music, the messaging behind it, what they did with the marketing, what they did with the rollout plan itself, paired with this creative direction, paired with this art design, really is what makes this album, an album cover, as iconic as it is. I can guarantee you an artist like Taylor Swift, particularly this era, the record label probably really wanted her face on this thing to sell the records, which I completely get. I like how whoever made the choice here, probably Taylor herself, I like how she gave them just enough of that. All right, so let's get into the next album. Reputation. Man, I don't know. I'm not crazy about this one. I do think part of that is probably me looking at this after what I kind of think was such a fantastic cover in 1989. And this had to follow that up. That's obviously going to be kind of tricky just in general, but yeah, this one's a little complex for me, and I'll tell you guys what I mean here. So it's definitely a fresh look for her only black and white cover that we've seen so far, and sort of a side of Taylor Swift that we haven't really seen yet. Black and white, it's nice and edgy. The newspaper theme here, obviously kind of a poke at tabloids and media that were really tearing her apart at this time, which I feel like kind of some of that maybe... I don't want to say anger. Maybe she was angry, maybe not, I don't know. But I think that kind of emotion is probably what led to the black and white here. I kind of hate saying this, but it does feel a little on the nose, the whole newspaper element. In general, Taylor Swift, I think, is really good at presenting ideas that are very open to interpretation. Maybe subtlety isn't what she wanted here. Maybe subtlety isn't what they needed here. So, you know, gotta respect, of course, all of the creative choices here. Swifties, I really want to hear from you guys on this one. What did you guys think of this album cover? Let me know in the comments. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Yeah, anxious to hear everybody's thoughts on that one. So, all right, let's talk about Lover, 2019's Lover. Back to color here, back to vibrant color. This was quite a departure from the Reputation cover, and I think you can kind of look at it as kind of opening a new chapter. Almost reminiscent of the Taylor Swift that we would have seen, you know, years ago. Obviously here, the music is much more poppy. There was more kind of social and political themes going on here with this record, and I think that that obviously lends itself a lot to the color themes here. So this is kind of interesting, and this is a theme that I've seen a lot happening nowadays too. Now this was from 2019. I don't necessarily think this was a new idea then, but I like that they did this. So the designer and photographer for this cover was a photographer named Valeria Roca. And she's kind of known for this style, this like very kind of bright, pastel-y, collage-y kind of look. But if you look at this, you could certainly make the argument that this cover looks like it could have been fan-made. Obviously it's not, but you could certainly make the argument that it does look like something that was fan-inspired. And I think what's so cool about this is, in doing some homework about this entire album, that was an approach that they did by design. That was something that they wanted to do to further fan engagement with this particular piece of art. Album art is in such a weird place because essentially it's just compressed into a little thumbnail icon that you see on your phone. So the challenge with a lot of designers has really become, how do we reinforce certain themes of the music and get the same ideas across, but do it from a marketing perspective that still feels fresh and unique? And I think that they really did that here, and they did that with a couple of these other albums as well, which we'll touch on later. But I think that that's something that Taylor's really good at, is finding ways to really engage fans with this art. All right, so we're gonna talk about Folklore. We're gonna talk about Folklore. Holy Folklore. Folklore 2020. This was done in 2020 when Taylor Swift, just like everybody else in the world, had a lot of downtime. She wrote this album, put it out there, recorded it, put it out there. Back to black and white with this one. Tonally, this is pretty awesome. Very stripped down, almost kind of pioneer-y kind of vibes. This cover sort of gives me like Blair Witch, Babadook kind of vibes a little bit. There's a similar overlapping aesthetic to it. There's a little bit of a mystique here as well. I really like that. I think very much in line with the music on this record. Very, very much in line. This feels more like, to me, like really Taylor going back to her roots on a lot of stuff here. Pretty honest and very authentic songwriting here. Even more so, I think, on the next album, Evermore, which we're about to get into. But yeah, I mean, this is very, very nice, very lovely. Shot by Beth Garbrandt. Man, wardrobe, styling, hair and makeup, art direction, and creative direction were all done by none other than Taylor Swift herself, of course. Super impressive, although not surprising. So Evermore, very similar to Folklore. You know, a surprise album that was kind of written in downtime and released in downtime. Much, I think, bolder than Folklore was, just in terms of songwriting and aesthetic. You have themes of infidelity and forbidden love, neglect. You have a lot of really heavy stuff here that she's, I think, does a really great job of not necessarily unpacking these ideas, but really telling very vivid stories throughout this entire album. So similar in some aspects to what we saw on Folklore, although unique from a certain perspective, and here's what I mean by that. Okay, first of all, we have a color photo now, and it's the back of Taylor's head looking at a forest ahead of her. Now, in Folklore, you had a black and white photo of her already in this forest. So I sort of insinuate this to mean maybe we're getting a different perspective on the world that Taylor has put us in with this music. That kind of approach makes the most sense to me. Although, again, I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Let's talk about some of the bigger storytelling elements of these visuals here, because there's really a lot going on with each of these albums. So it's really fun to talk about. So let's get into that in the comments. Photos also done by Beth Garbrandt. All right, so the final, most recent album from Taylor Swift is Midnight. I did a complete breakdown of that album. I did a complete reaction to album art and the visuals presented there. If you guys want to check it out, there's a link to it right up here, I don't know, somewhere. Check that out. Let me know what you guys think. I really want to hear from you guys and from fans who have spent just as much time as I have really digging into this art, because I know that there's a really good amount of storytelling elements here. So you guys, let me know what you think there. So guys, all in all, Taylor Swift is brilliant at reinventing herself. When you're talking about album art, when you're talking about creative direction, these ideas should really come as a secondary source for the music itself. The music should always lead. However, the visuals should be able to elevate the music to a place it wouldn't be able to get to otherwise. I sincerely believe Taylor Swift has had the success that she's had in reinventing herself and reinventing her brand, reinventing her music, is because she has such a clear and honest thoughts about the creative direction as it aligns with the music itself. Every album cover we've looked at, every marketing material we have looked at, every brand element itself has been meticulously looked after by Taylor herself. And I think that level of dedication to realizing the importance of the symbiotic relationship between the music and the visuals is truly what has helped Taylor Swift become the icon that she is. All right, guys, so I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear you guys' take on the storytelling behind these albums, on the photography, on what the bigger picture means to you. And I want to know what you guys think about the involvement Taylor's had in all this. She's been so hands-on because there is so much storytelling going on here with these albums. So guys, if you like this content, if this was interesting, please consider liking the video. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys thought. I want to hear from you. I will catch you guys on the next one.
Creative Direction Studio.